Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We are back here on YouTube, and this week we are looking at how to prevent power slippage in the kayak and surf ski with the wing blade. This is a three-part series breaking down how to properly transfer your energy to the water. We have completed the series from the perspective of the canoe stroke, and you can find that on our channel. Now we're going to begin looking at it from the perspective of the double blade. Power slippage is defined as the energy that we're creating through our movement not making its way to the water. That power travels through all the joints of the body and through the kinetic chain, and if there are points where we are creating poor leverages, that energy will slip. So instead of all this energy traveling through my body and making it to the hand and making it to the paddle shaft, making it to the blade, into the water, if its motion is hindered at all, that power is now slipping. The first part of the series is talking about creating shapes with the body to help maximize your power connection to the water. One of the primary reasons that power slippage occurs is we are creating very poor shapes with the body. Leverage is the greatest tool that you can utilize with your body to maximize your power output. On this channel, we talk about dynamic motion and some of the movements that we go through that are very specific. When motions are optimized, the shapes that athletes create to go through those actions have almost been predefined. Kayaking has gotten to a very similar point. Many athletes look very similar at the highest levels as they go through this motion. It is easy to identify what they're doing and simply mimic it. The reason that they create these very distinct shapes is to maximize their inherent leverages to allow more power to transfer into the water. Your inherent strength and fitness is one base aspect, and it is multiplied by the amount of leverage that you create. Paddlers that are most technically savvy have the least amount of power slippage, so the amount of force that they can produce may be limited from their overall fitness, but their leverages that they're using to their advantage allows them to move a boat very effectively. The best way to look at this is looking at junior and youth level athletes. Inherently, they do not have the muscular mass to move and create force the same way a full-grown adult does, but with good technical precision, they're able to use those leverages to their advantage. Multiplying the force that they do have at their disposal now makes them more effective in a racing setting. The shapes that we choose to create dictate the amount of force that we are going to get throughout the stroke. Creating the shapes takes place during the setup phase of the stroke. As the blade begins to interact with the water, the shapes that we have predefined during the setup are shapes that we are now locked into throughout the rest of the stroke. Once you apply pressure to your blade as it's in the water, it is hard to morph and move your body around. What we're looking for is predefining many of the shapes that we're going to utilize before the stroke begins. That way, when we begin interacting with the water, we have all these leverages predefined and they're ready to allow that power transfer into the water. So what we'll do is we're going to talk about the shapes of the body that we're looking to create from the upper body, the torso, and down to the legs. This video is a quick run through of the shapes that we're looking for. If you want more in-depth information, we have 200 videos on the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com, 50 of them revolving around the surf ski and the kayak stroke in general. Breaking down every single joint of the body and looking at the kinetic chain, the amount of pressure that we're looking for with the top hand, the bottom hand, our connection with the water. There are so many little details that we cover on the website. If you're interested in getting more information, check out the website today. So the first shape that we're going to look at is going to be the top arm, right? So as we're in this position, we are trying to split the difference on the two extremes, both with the shoulder and the elbow. The first extreme is this position where the shoulder is totally extended and then the elbow is extended. And the second position is where this elbow is totally bent and this shoulder position is now sucked in like so. Splitting the difference gives us this nice 90-degree angle here, and you have some wiggle room with this top arm's position. Ultimately, with the pathing of the top arm, we are looking for downward pressure with this top hand, so we want this hand to start elevated. That way, when we're completing the stroke, it has the pathing to travel downward. Poor shaping would be having this top hand too low, and now it has nowhere to go. It already starts in a very low and weak position, and it doesn't have anywhere to actually travel with a meaningful reward. Power is slipping from these joints being in terrible position. That being said, this is one of the most common errors that we see with paddling, is paddlers having their elbows and shoulders very low and then pawing at the stroke here. Power slippage is occurring in dozens of locations in the upper body by being in this position. Creating a powerful shape, space gives us the ability to create dynamic motion. Predefining how much space we have gives us this leverage through the stroke. We have to set this up early, allowing us to take advantage of it in the middle and the end of the stroke. The other inefficiency of having the top arm extended is now your shoulder has to bear the weight of your arm in its entirety as it's extended overhead. The other inefficiency is as this arm is fully extended, it pulls the paddle very close to us, and as we're coming straight down, it pulls the wing blade too close to the boat. So now your tool is working against you. If you set up the stroke and predefine this position early, as you begin interacting with water, you are locked into a bunch of positions that are not very efficient. You might be able to get a tremendous amount of force by coming up and down at such a high angle, but it is not sustainable for any period of time. Splitting the difference gives you the leverage with the top hand, allowing that pathing and spacing to work with you in the stroke, and being very efficient. The next shape that we are looking for is having this bottom arm extended out. Having a slight bend here or fully extended is personal preference, but we never want to start the stroke with this elbow very bent like so. Ideally, the further away that we can get this paddle from us, the more leverage that we can create throughout the stroke. Keeping the arm extended allows the transfer of motion with the body to occur from our bigger muscles. If I bend at this elbow, the only thing that has to move to bring the blade to the exit position is now my elbow. By keeping this arm extended, it forces me to go through this motion of bringing the paddle blade back towards me by using my hips, my shoulders, my legs, and coming through the motion without engaging these smaller muscles. Having this top arm at 90 degrees and this bottom arm extended, now we've created the power triangle with the spacing between the sternum and the shaft of the blade here. The bigger the spacing here, the more power potential that we have through our leverages. Having this top hand in bad position, the elbow slightly bent, now this power triangle is much smaller, and as I go through this motion, it is limited with the amount of force that I can produce comparatively to having this hand up, arm extended. The power transfer is much higher. There is less power slippage in this position. Next, we want to look at the torso. As we're in this upright position, there is a space between the bottom rib and the top of your pelvis. This spacing allows us to keep an upright spine. If I close this spacing, my whole torso collapses on itself on this side. As we're taking the strokes, we do not want the torso and these oblique muscles to collapse on themselves back and forth. Power slippage that occurs here is cutting off the legs from the upper body. The moment the upper body collapses on itself, your upper body works independently of the lower body. Only by keeping the spacing here can I allow my leg motion to properly move my upper body back and forth. If I collapse here, I can pump my legs and my hands no longer move, meaning that I have to turn through the thoracic spine to go through this motion. We can collapse that spacing both from leaning to the sides as well as folding forward. If my back is rounded, it will also turn off the leg connection from the upper body. So as I sit in this position, my rib cage to my pelvis bone, this spacing is very minimal. If I sit properly with good posture, this spacing has created itself, and we can get additional leverages with the torso from this, as well as connect the lower body to to the upper body. The final shape that we're looking for as we go through the setup, we have the top arm 90 degrees, the bottom arm is extended. We're keeping the spacing here between the ribs and the hips. Now we want to try and push the hip forward and pushing the knee forward. If you ever look at photogenic shots of high-level racers, you will always see that their knees are very high and they move very elegantly back and forth. Leg motion creates space for your hips to move. And as your hips move, your shoulders move, and as your shoulders move, the leverages that you're creating with your upper body can now move with a high level of power from your legs. Turning the hips into the stroke will bring that knee up, and this is a predefined shape that we're looking for. We cannot extend the knee unless it is in flexion. So the leg has to be bent for us to extend and move every other joint of the body. If I start my stroke with my leg already extended, I cannot move this joint. It has already moved to a maximum. So if I'm starting the stroke and this leg is fully extended, there is no motion here, there is no motion at the hip, and now the whole kinetic chain is broken and we have major power slippage from the leg. When you're at the gym and you're on a leg press machine, you bring your knees towards your chest and then you extend your legs. One leads to the other. If you do not bend your knee, that leg cannot extend later during the power phase when we need it. So that is the shape that we're looking for, is turning the hip, pushing that leg forward and bringing that knee up. This predefined shape is necessary throughout the middle of the stroke, and again, it has to be predefined. So one more time going through, we have the top arm at a 90-degree angle. There's a little bit of wiggle room as you move this around based on comfort, right? The higher up, the more leverage, but the more uncomfortable it may be. Being slightly lower may be relief for your shoulder, but you're not going to create as much leverage. Bottom arm position is mostly extended. A slight bend is totally fine. We have created this power triangle with the upper body. Keeping the spacing here between the ribs and the pelvis gets this nice upright position. Turning the hips, turning the body, and pushing the knee forward. This setup position is what we're looking for to allow us the most amount of leverage throughout the stroke. In part 2, we will talk about holding these shapes while we're interacting with the water. But the first step is always setting up these positions so we can use them later. The most important part of the kayak stroke is the setup. How you set up your leverages dictates the amount of force that you can handle throughout the stroke. If you create very poor shapes, you are locked into poor movement, and your wattage output and your boat speed will be always hindered from this. Create powerful shapes and going through dynamic motion. This is what allows your boat to move faster. So that's it for this week's video. If you have questions about how you are paddling, we offer video reviews on the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com. It is very affordable. If you upload a file to the website, I usually get that back to you within a day. It is the most concise way to look at exactly what you're doing, seeing you as the model, showing you what I see, and going through a lot of details to make sure that you are progressing. Understanding what you need to change allows you to expedite the learning curve process. Combine that with the 200 videos that we offer on the website, and these synergize together to get you guys the most direct information possible on the internet today. Thank you guys so much for checking out the video, and tune in next week when we talk about holding shapes throughout the stroke. We'll see you guys then.